What's going on, everybody? Today's episode is going to be very informative. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and it has to do with investing. Because I know everybody tells you, like, your parents and everybody older as you're growing up, you got to invest, you got to invest, you got to invest. But, like, what does that mean? And so I really want to dive into it, and I'm going to dive in, like, how to distribute different funds, how to choose what to invest in, how to manage risk, all of that. So I'm going to be bringing on Josh to talk with us about this. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Fantastic today. How about yourself, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. So with this whole investing thing, this is something, quite honestly, it wasn't until probably 2020 I started investing at all, which is like crazy to think about. That's only 3 years ago. And I'm 30 years old. So it wasn't until I was 27 that I even began to think about and begin investing in anything. And what has your experience been like with investing? Like, when did you begin? What did you know before you started?
Yeah, it's like what a mentor of like the thing you learn really quick when you start your investment journey, right? Is like what one of my mentors told me said, the best time to start investing was yesterday. The second best time to start is today. Definitely, I probably started investing when I was like around closer to like maybe 28 was when I first started getting into it, or at least doing it seriously. And so it was, always just taking a portion of my check and putting it away into some stocks at the time. And then I eventually started looking at, okay, what are other different things in which, I can put my money in where I could see it potentially growing, right? And so for me, I've always been fascinated by technology, especially with all of the different applications in the sector, but kind of the infinite possibilities in there as well. So for me, technology is always where I've put a lot of my investing in. So, and I've had different investments that I've done with like different companies that I've run, but also when you're talking about like just more investing in general, as in like traditional, more like stocks and bonds. For me, it was looking into various tech stocks. That's what originally interested me. Then in the year 2017, kind of came across this weird fringe thing called cryptocurrency that I'd heard a bit about. Well, actually, I shouldn't say 2017. It was like more like 2015 is when I really came into that. And then started investing in the space because I was, again, the technology side of it was what really intrigued me. And it was like, this is kind of like, feels like being able to invest in the internet before it becomes like the internet. And regardless of what you think about crypto or this or the other, it's pretty undeniable now where the technology has come. And we're seeing a lot of different blockchain technologies are going to become more and more put into fruition in day-to-day use. So again, positioning myself that way, paid out really, really well, but also, opened me up to an incredible amount of risk. So it's like, the greatest joys and also the greatest frustrations. So, I've had times where like my portfolios, I've woken up and it's like down by 1700% across the board, which in most like stocks, like you wouldn't get that wild swings. And then there's other times where, woken up and then it's been up, over 5,000% across the board. So it's like, okay, there's a lot of ups and downs, but the biggest things I've learned through a lot of the investing is, one, it's important to just know what you're investing in. You have to do your homework and your research. Don't just throw your money willy-nilly into something because that's the easiest way to lose it, or to not position yourself to like exit, which is also a very important part of your investment strategy. Because a lot of people think, oh, I just throw money into this and then it just number goes up and then I get rich and so I can start eating caviar for every meal that I have, right? It's like, well, if you don't know or understand or have a good sense or semblance of again where things are, you don't know if you're getting a nice little temporary bump, if it's going to be more of a long-term ride out, or if this is just like, hey, this is the one shot that this thing has, so time to really pull out and exit. Because again, any and all investing, right? People say, oh, how can you invest in stuff? It's all gambling. It's like, well, everything you do in life is gambling, right? Like you go to sleep, you gamble that you're going to wake up tomorrow, right? Because it's very possible that you could not. So anything and everything is going to be gambling. But you have to, one, understand like 100% what it is you're investing in. And real estate it's really true in that market too. I personally have not done any investing in real estate just because for me, I've always aired more towards technology. I really, really like that sector. I probably will start branching out more into the real estate side of the equation just for the sake of balancing out and diversifying my portfolio. But I've had some friends that have done very well in real estate. I've had a lot of friends lose an insane amount of money in real estate. So and I think part of that too is when I was just starting to come out of college. I graduated in 2007, but I was thinking about different investments and whatnot, and I had a lot of friends that were in real estate like 2005, 2006, 2007, and then 2008, 90% of them got wiped out. So it's like seeing that firsthand was a little bit of like okay, I need to really, really think about how I invest in these things. So that's been kind of like a big sort of long-winded explanation of my sort of like investment history and what I've seen. But yeah, for me personally, I've always delved more into the tech side of the equation, even though there's a bunch of other different investments that you can make. I mean, you can always invest in health companies. You can invest in foreign currencies with Forex. Like there's a whole lot of different things that you can really invest in. But I always advise people know 100% have a very good, solid, fundamental understanding of what you're investing in. So that way you can then map out your investment strategy as well as understand your risk tolerance. I'm sure we'll talk more about the risk tolerance in a bit because that's the thing that ruins a lot of people in investing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about right now, just based on you going through all the different things there. Understand that when you go ahead and invest in crypto, that is an active investment. What does that mean? That means you have to be watching it and you have to sell when it makes sense to sell. And versus if you're investing in let's say a mutual fund,
right?
You essentially just putting the money in there. They manage it for you. And I don't know, when you do some of them like Vanguards, it's typically averages around 7% return a year, which isn't bad. Again, nothing crazy, but it's sustainable, and it tends to beat inflation. I don't know what the heck's going on anymore, but it tends to beat inflation. So it's a good cover against that. Now, you're not going to make money through investing by doing that, but you're at least going to slowly gain a little bit over time, and you at least stay. It's not just like keeping the money under your mattress where it's not getting anything.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to outline too, is having a plan for your money or your capital, right? Because I'll park cash in other spots where it's hey, I'm not going to touch this for 20 years, and then I'll keep some in savings account, and then I'll throw some in these investments here and there. But you have to have a plan for your capital, right? So it's hey, look, if I'm really trying to crack 7 figures, right? Then investing $5,000 into a mutual fund, right, it's not going to get you there, right? No matter how great, brilliant your strategist is, because on average, right, you're saying most mutual funds, especially with mutual funds and index funds, right, usually they're going to get around 5 to 7% annual return. So I mean, again, if you get 9-10%, everyone's oh my god, how did you do that? What's your magic sauce and your secret to it, right? Versus other things, which again, the crypto space is a great example of this. It's you can see, sometimes 5,000, 20,000, 50,000% returns on your investment, but you can also stand for super huge risk, right? There's the wild upswings and then the wild downswings. So you have to understand okay, do you want more consistent, stable, or do you want kind of the wild west where again you have real huge upside potential but also really huge downside potential? And usually it's best to kind of mix, right? I mean, some people are all or nothing personalities, so it's hey, look, I'm either just gonna be real keen, real straight, or I'm gonna go into this real wild up and down all over the place type market. But you also have to understand that when you put your money into a mutual fund, right, you are trusting somebody else to manage your money, and you are trusting somebody else to make the right choices. So you always want to make sure that anybody that you wind up investing with, especially if it's a mutual fund or anything like that, you want to interview them and just understand, okay, what type of strategies are you usually employing? Where exactly are my funds going? How do I have some access and visibility just so I can, again, ask questions? Because again, it's your money, but they're taking it and they're managing it for you, right? Now, obviously, they would like to have some type of return, but do understand that there's actually a lot of fund managers out there that will get paid regardless whether or not you actually get money or a return. So they don't necessarily have a fiduciary responsibility to you. A lot of fund managers that work for banks, actually, they get commissions off selling you financial products. And so it's, their fiduciary responsibility to themselves to sell these products to you, which may or may not necessarily be in your best interest. So you have to be really, really careful when it comes down to trusting your money with somebody else. So again, don't be afraid to do some investigation, ask some questions. And like I was saying before about anything else, right? Just know what you're getting into and understand, okay, what exactly is this or what is going on? Or again, I have a lot of guys that, will hit me up and pitch me and say, hey, I'm with such and such agency and we do this type of fund management, this, that, or the other. And so, I'll be blunt and I'll ask them like, all right, well, what's the most amount of, like, in a range, right? What's the most amount of money that you made in a year, right? Because again, if you're only made like $110,000, but you're trying to tell me how to manage $500,000, well, you're not understanding my level of problems, my level of concern, right? Because you haven't crossed that threshold yet. But also inversely, right? It's like, hey, what exactly is your investment history? What's your investment strategy? As well as, again, what specific things are you looking to invest in? So that way I can do my own just independent research and see alongside, all right, if what you're telling me is lining up with what else I'm seeing. Because they're saying, oh, we really think that, subprime auto loans are going to be like a really great growth sector for us. And you're doing some independent research saying like, actually, it looks like the bubble's like just about to burst at any moment now. So this is going to fall out, right? Then that it's probably not going to be like the right alignment. So again, you always want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, because at the end of the day, it is your money. You are responsible for it. So you want to make the best educated decisions for yourself. But again, you take a little bit of time to do this. It'll make the difference between you making a lot of money or losing a lot of money.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And one thing I do want to say, because it's very intimidating when you first step into investing. One thing we had not mentioned yet, I know we had talked about these mutual funds and things like that. One of the things you can do, and I would advise you guys to go take a look at it, you can look for what they call robo advisors, where essentially you sign up for a service and you put money in there, and it's all just like a computer program. It's like ChatGPT, and it essentially manages your money for you, and it essentially is completely on pace with the other institutions out there. So if you don't want to deal with somebody from like Vanguard or where else, and you just like, I just want to do something to start, that's a great way to start. That's actually it wasn't 2020, it was 2019 when I started, and that actually is where I began. I began with Betterment, and I put in $200 per week for like a month. So I put in like $800, and then I just didn't think about it. And then when I went to go check, like a year down the road, it was at $2,000. So I know there was a lot of strange things happening with COVID, but just by doing that and getting my feet wet to like see kind of what investing looks like, I could see it, and I had a little bit of understanding, so that if I did want to go to a Vanguard, I can speak to them a little bit better, and nobody's going to like, bowl over me or tell me about these, the auto loan stuff like you're saying, and like, that type of stuff. And I think that's great for people that are brand new, because you may not want to do all the research, and you may not even know how to do all the research. So I really suggest that. I don't know if you've ever used programs like that.
I've thought about it, just because again, there's so many more tools that have become like available, and especially like over the last like 5 to 6 years that just didn't exist before. So a lot of what I learned from just talking to some mentors of mine who are very well off, and some have like lost crazy amounts of money, and others have like made like good amounts of money as well. So getting those balanced perspectives. And so, I would definitely say that, yeah, there's a lot of tools and accessibility out there. And again, like you can just pull up YouTube's got a lot of great resources on there, right? Where you can pull up hey, investing 101, just so again, you understand like what the motions of going through investing are, as well as how to make the best decisions for yourself. And again, we get it. Like some of you guys, like, got to decide like if you're going to, make top ramen tonight, or, if you're going to pay your light bill, right? And so when it comes to the thought of investing, right, it just seems like it's like really crazy and just not completely not doable. But again, you don't have to start with like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes, if you do want to get to like the upper echelons, then yes, you have to at some point get there. But again, you can start with something as small as like, all right, $10 a week, right? $20 a week, whatever you could afford or spare. Now, again, the biggest thing, right, is always make sure you never invest anything more than you're willing to lose, right? Because again, it is gambling. It's an investment. It may not work out. It could go completely to the wayside. So again, don't say, all right, well, I'm going to throw like my entire like, rent check into this investment just so that way, like, I'm going to hit it big, right? It's like, well, you could do that, but you also like really run the risk of like ruining yourself financially. So again, always start small. Always start with like, again, something that's manageable for yourself. So, and we all usually have the money there somewhere, right? Like you go out drinking with your buddies, right? Like every like week, every weekend for 3 days. Maybe then you take like, some of that money that you would have spent on a couple beers and just, hey, put that away to the side and invest it in something else. Cause right, worst case scenario, right? All right, if it goes or it's gone, like, well, all right, cool. You're, would have spent it on beer or something like that, versus like, hey, actively giving yourself a shot to like turn it into something more. But again, learn the basics with something small, so that way you get your a good sense of it. Because when I first started investing, I was not investing thousands of dollars at a time. I was like investing like maybe $50 here, $100 there, maybe $200 here. And then again, just understanding the basics of what I was looking for. Then once I started figuring out, okay, here's how I can get some consistent percentages on returns. Now I can scale up and then level it up, right? Because again, you get a 5% return on $200. That's great. But if you somehow get a 50% return on $200, hey, that's even better. But, now you've learned that what the percentage is and how you can manage to do that. So now if you, have $2,000 and you get 50% return on that, well, now you got $3,000, right? Versus just $300, right? So it always scales up. But you have to start somewhere and kind of learn the basics and get your feet wet. And again, wherever that is on the economic scale for you, but start small, get it figured out and sorted, and then you can start to really scale up and be more aggressive. But the big thing is you have to understand yourself, and you have to understand your level of risk tolerance. So a large reason why a lot of people do really, really terrible in very volatile markets is like, especially in the crypto space. And I've seen this firsthand a lot because I've done a lot of consulting with it, and I've had to talk a lot of people off the bridge and off the ledges. If you don't have like a very high level of risk tolerance, then you got to find something that's going to be just very low, like slow pace, low stress, low returns. So something like a COD or a bond, or even like an index fund. That's just hey, I just throw my money here. I don't think about it. I check in on like a year, and then okay, maybe we're good to go. But if you want to get into something more active or something more like hands-on or like day trading, even that's going to be a very, very high degree of swings you have to stomach. And the biggest thing about emotion or about investing is you can't be emotional with it. You have to be very, very pragmatic and sound and unemotional, because again, the numbers, they have no emotions either way, right? The market forces drive them one way or the other, but again, they're indifferent to it. So if you can maintain that, then that will help you ride and weather out the downturns, but it will also help you know when to cash out, or at least make the most of your upswings, because then you don't get like too attached to like, well, it's gone up this high, it could probably go up like a lot higher.
Yeah. And that's a big thing too with like crypto. When it goes up a certain amount, take out your initial investment. That's the very first thing you need to do. People don't do that. It is just so important, because then at that point, that money's still there. That's all free money. You've made that when you
de-risk
put
your position.
Yeah, there you go.
And again, even with like real estate or anything like that too, right? Because again, people think like, oh, okay, cool, real estate. Yeah, I just buy a house, and then next thing I know is like I'm a tycoon. It's like, look, if you buy a house and you actually live in it, then you're not actually like making the most out of that investment as like a real estate investment, I just consider you like having a really huge liability, because again, you have something that, right, in theory is appreciating in value, but again, you're spending so much money with property taxes, with upkeep, just to make sure that, again, on the day to day that you're fine. Versus, okay, if you buy a property and you're renting it out, well, now it's an income generating property. So now that sounds like a much better, more potentially lucrative investment than actually like buying your house and then just living in it. So again, there's different strategies that you can employ with different assets types, but you have to know and understand exactly kind of what you're getting yourself into and the inherent nature of the market. Because again, real estate's one where a lot of people go into and they get wrecked kind of easily, because again, they think that, oh, okay, well, the market always appreciates, it always goes up. And it's like, well, one, if it always goes up, right, that should be like a bit of a warning sign right there. And as 2008 showed, right, even though, yeah, it was kind of like a freak occurrence, there was still a lot of underlying things that showed like, hey, guess what? Like, it's either A, not always going up, or B, there can be shifts or rifts in the market space that could affect or impact you. So again, you have to know and understand exactly like what you're getting yourself into, as well as the lay of the land and the strategies. Because again, there's a ton of people that, think they're going to go into real estate and become these great, moguls and tycoons. And a lot of them have gotten wrecked. So, I mean, me personally, when I started going to real estate, I probably will look at like something that's more income generating, something like maybe an apartment complex to buy, or something like a commercial property for lease, something like that, versus like, okay, I'm just going to buy a house and live in it, and then hope that it goes up. Because again, if you really run the numbers on like living in a house versus like renting, depending on the length of time, right, and the market that you're in, sometimes you actually do come out ahead, like on the rental side, right? Because a common thing that a lot of people have told me is like, oh, you pay, say on average, right, you're paying like $2,000 in rent, but like a mortgage is going to be $1,200. It's like, yes, your mortgage is $1,200 and it's less than my $2,000 of rent. But understand that you had to shell out an extremely large down payment on that house, right? Which, depending on the value of the house, right, could be anywhere between 5 to 20%. So you could be out, right, 20, 30, 40, even 50 or more $1,000 before, just to get you to that $1,200 a month payment. Whereas, okay, yeah, I paid $800 extra in rent, but I still kept my extra 20, 30 grand that I can now go and invest elsewhere, right? So again, you got to think about where the money all is and where it goes and what it takes to get you to certain things, right? So
yeah,
again,
if you're like living in an apartment and you want to get into real estate and you would like to live in one of your houses, I mean, one of the best things that I hear people do is start with the duplex, and essentially what you do is you live on one side, and then on the other side is the renter, who's essentially paying enough to cover most of what's going on, and then it gives you time to go ahead and then pick your next location, and then you just keep expanding that way. It's a really great way to get started. I mean, you want to start right away with an entire apartment complex. Power to you, but this is the cheap man's way of starting to do it.
Yeah, and again, there's multiple different pathways and like different avenues. So again, everyone's kind of like got to start right somewhere. But it's like there's a lot of different ways, I'd say, like, again, to slice and dice. But yeah, know what you're getting yourself into, right? Because again, if you have your house and you start it, right, there's going to be ownership fees and like you're going to have to upkeep, right? Like HOAs, what? Property taxes, what? Oh, you need a new roof. Oh, what? Like something breaks, a pipe burst, you got to, that's all stuff you're paying out of pocket, right? So again, understand the full scope and scale of what you're getting yourself into. And again, if you're right on a different side of the spectrum, you're like, hey man, like I only have like $20 a week that I can throw into something, right? Then it's like, okay, great, not a problem at all. There's still a ton of different avenues for you where, again, there's various stocks that you can look into. There's different funds that you can invest that money in. But the important thing is it's better to start investing some way, somehow, versus just sitting out by the wayside and just kind of hoping that, okay, well, someday I'll get an early, nice and large payday. Because more often than not, that doesn't really happen. But when you really start to put your money and make it really work for you, and you can see the returns that you can get on it working for you, well, hey, then then things get really, really fun. And then it becomes like a new game that you're trying to unlock.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's about, we were talking about this earlier. It's about using the systems. Like the systems are there. There's nothing we can do about it. It's just, these are the systems. You either use them, optimize them, and win, or you can stay confused and hate them. And so with, I have international employees and I have to pay them in crypto. So I keep a bulk of my money in USDC, which even just through Coinbase, it gets 5% APY. And so even just having a little bit in there, month over month, it covers all transaction fees for me to send my employees their paychecks, which is absolutely fantastic. And it's like, it's figuring out like what is the best system to use to maximize the money, like how I need to use it. And so I just think like across the board, like there's lots of different ways if you spend the time like really looking at all the options. I mean, there's too many options today. Like honestly, like I lose my mind trying to like look things up. But when you find systems and you understand them and you make them work for you, then everything becomes so much easier.
Yeah. And again, the big takeaways for if you take away anything from this, right? It's like one, there's a lot of accessibility in a lot of different ways and avenues, but, for you to explore. But two, really just, again, know and do your homework and your research into what it is that you're getting yourself into. Three, look at your level of risk tolerance, because again, like a lot of people, they get wrecked in the investment side just because they don't have the stomach for like, oh my God, like, I put in $1,000 and I lost like 10% of it, right? $100 went out the window. Like I'm having a heart attack, right? Whereas other people, it's like, all right, cool. I lost $900. Okay, well, great. Don't worry. I'm like down now, but I see the bigger picture, the longer vision. Like I'll be up. Don't worry about it, right? So, but again, I've seen firsthand why a lot of people do get wrecked in the space, in the investment space in general, because again, they don't have the stomach. And then the fourth thing that I would say is, again, it's good to get some good sort of outside advice, right, from people that either are in the investment space or are outside the investment space, that either are like good mentors of yours or again, other folks that are in your immediate circle. So that way you can get some balanced perspective on things, because oftentimes people will give you some very, very good sound advice, but also they'll give you like terrible advice. But it's coming from their experience, and so it may not work the best for you. So it's good to have a little bit of that sanity check and balance things out. Because again, I had to learn very painfully the hard way that I thought I was an investment like guru like the first like couple years I was investing, and quickly realized like, oh no, like when a market cycle is going up, yeah, everyone feels like a genius, and then when it goes down, it's like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm completely ruined. But I didn't realize like in the downturn is actually when the most amount of opportunity is to set yourself up for the next run, where you can really capitalize, put yourself in a real good position to win. So it's good to have that balanced perspective from other folks, because they can give you some ideas or some insight, or again, help talk you off that cliff or that ledge, because it's real easy to just look at the charts and just like, again, get too into the weeds. So, there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but you really have to pick like what is the absolute best for you. And all of this is like hashtag not financial advice, but
Yeah, no, that's really great. And that's actually probably where we can end here. That's a really, really great wrap up. I love what you said with that. I definitely want to have deeper discussions on this. I definitely want to do some stuff in the community that's a little bit more in depth, especially on crypto, since I know you're very deep in the weeds in that. And I can definitely lend a little bit on that. So yeah, no, it's exciting. Let us know, guys, what you thought about this discussion and like what more you want to know about investing. And this is kind of like, I literally put it in the description, investing 101, because it's kind of what it is, just getting started. Because I know a lot of guys are just getting started. Josh, honestly, I was shocked when you said 28 was when you began, because for me, it was 27.
yeah,
Like I thought I was late.
I thought I was late, and then it was like, yeah, and again, like as I said, right, the best time to start was yesterday. The next best time to start is today. So, if any of you are out there and you haven't started yet or anything, don't worry about it. Just understand that again, the time when it comes to investing, time is always the the best resource. And so that's really what investing is you're trying to monetize time. And so the more time you spend, the more potential you have to monetize. So it's always better to start sooner rather than later. And again, everyone's at various different things. And like I said, I've been there where it's like, man, do I spend my last $5 on making sure that my light bill is paid, or do I spend it on like a Big Mac so I don't go hungry tonight, right? So again, everybody's at some level or something, but if you really do think about where all your money goes and you take accounting inventory, you actually will find that you probably have like a couple of spare bucks that, again, you can just start putting to the side and trying to work it and grow it. And again, if you put in $1 and you only make 1 cent, hey, guess what? You still made 1 more cent than you had before. So you're making money. You're not losing money. So take the wins when you get them. Because again, the small wins, those are what give you the real learning lessons to leverage that will lead you to making those big wins.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Josh. This was a great discussion. And thank you, everybody who tuned in. We will see you guys next week.